still there today. It's just like, it's all like, there's that, it's all just sand. And,
We're live now, folks.
Okay, he took 14 logging trucks off of his place.
oh, I believe it, yeah.
Oh, yes, we did.
Meeting to order. I want to acknowledge that we're on the unceded traditional territory of the Upper Smoky Indian Band. Adoption of the agenda.
Make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Gould,
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Any additions? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Adoption of the March 7th, 2022 regular meeting council minutes.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Noted, Councilor Coyne, any errors or omissions? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Petitions and delegations, we have one tonight, carried. Everybody else here? 15 minutes.
Yeah. All right.
I'm timing it.
We had discussed before about selling signage down at the park. We have, so far, without even pounding the pavement, we have approximately 6-7 companies that are on board for that. So the first year will be a fee of $500, and that will include the cost of the sign. And the sign is anywhere from $180 to $250, depending on the artwork. So we just need final yes or no on it, and then those funds will be put towards, we're willing to pay for any kind of groundskeeping, help with the infields. Pressure washing will need to be done. Also, I wanted to ask if we have like the handicap bus, does the town own that? Reason being, we've come up with, we'd like to get some seniors out to some ball games this year. So down at the park, everything is wheelchair accessible, but we need a way and some volunteers, which we can post for. But I just want to know if we even had a means of transportation to get them there to start with.
Yeah, so talk to community services.
Okay, so we do have something. Okay, good enough. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about too was, well, Nadine, I've met with Nadine and she's on a bunch of stuff, so I don't really need to go over that again. My only thing is, the number one most important thing is the netting. And not only do we need new netting, it needs to be higher too. Not like to the sky, but it needs to be another, probably anywhere from 10 to 20 feet higher. But I'll let her deal with that. The concession stand, I have to put my 2 cents in for that to be not to be torn down, because at very least it can be an equipment room for minor ball, anything. So I know that Nadine is going after some provincial grants for the netting and what have you, and to us that's the top priority. Our league, we can do some fundraising, put it out for tender, volunteers, whatever, to do the work on the concession stand. Like even if we got a roof this summer, maybe a floor next year, some electrical, what have you. But there are ways to do things for that, so it doesn't have to come out of council or town or what have you, right? And that could come out of our signage. Like, we're willing to help as much as we can, or as much as you guys will allow us, right? So in the meantime, we have the company Grub Box, which you've seen around town lots. And they want to start coming to the ballpark when we start playing. So I told them I would ask and make sure that that's okay. That shouldn't be an issue. And they're going to do it on a trial basis for the games. And then we have booked them for our playoff tournament thing that we're doing in July. We have music booked for that as well. And then the only other thing we'd like for that particular weekend would be some camping, but I think we might be able to get that through the Indian Band. But there are a couple of areas down at the park where we could have camping and where they used to have camping. And then a beer gardens, which I've talked to Mark about before, that we would work together with the posse on that, and we would split the profits so that half the profits go to Posse and half would come to our ball league. And then, so I read in the paper, I didn't hear from anybody, but did you guys approve a $2,000 grant for us? That's what was in the paper.
I think so, for the plates, right?
For the grant and aid?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, for your plates.
Yeah.
Because that was the only thing that was yours, not something that we should.
That's
look
right,
after.
and you guys waived our fees and Little League fees. So we had our general meeting yesterday.
Yeah, I'm not sure. James has to send out letters. We don't approve the budget till tonight, maybe, so.
Oh, okay.
Till the
So what-
budget's approved, there's no,
We're still in,
everything's,
yeah, we're still in the consultation.
everything is preliminary until the budget's approved, so.
Oh, so the $2,000 is preliminary?
Until the budget's approved, so.
Oh, okay.
It's in the
Okay.
budget,
Yeah, I'm not sure how
Yeah.
things work, that's why I'm
yeah.
here.
So once it's approved, then it's,
But I believe it was you, Lyle, that approved the fees, the user fees to be waived?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much for that, by the way, and thank you. Yeah, thanks for whatever is approved.
thanks, Lyle.
Thanks for whatever is approved. We've just bought all new balls for everybody because we're changing the softness. So we got 1180 out so far, so that'll come out of the, if it's approved, the grant. So we are spending it properly and what have you. That includes like scorebooks and clickers and what have you. So that you guys will be doing like sometime this week or whatever. I just have to kind of keep up on things. And so we've got 8 teams so far, and we're shooting for 10. Okay. And I think that's about, oh, go ahead.
Are you doing the advertising on the fence? Is that what?
Yes.
it is?
Yeah, so I've been to Jackie, like she's set up the signs and what have you. We just need your guys' blessing to do so. Okay, yeah, I talked to you about that there before. And that's it. That was quick this time. Thank you.
On staff reports, development permit for 242 Bridge Street. Mark.
Thank you. We've got a development permit application for the addition of an awning over 242 Bridge Street. This is the location of Golden Jade Restaurant. Location is zoned central business and is in the town center commercial OCP zoning in development permit area 1 town center, so requires the development permit to complete the awning. The awning obviously follows the form of the rest of the street. Both neighbors on each side both already have awnings. As far as the design and everything, it's going to be dark in color on the roof with wood pillars. Probably the biggest piece to note is there is a requirement for an easement, obviously, for new additions over that sidewalk. So that's probably the biggest piece of this one.
So moved. My point is that from a, where you're just conforming to the rest of the street, you're also keeping snow off your sidewalk, a little bit of safety and that sort of thing, so it's just a positive, as far as I can see.
Do we have any requirements for maintenance on those?
It's covered in the encroachment agreement.
Okay.
I don't have a copy of it, but it is covered.
And it will look somewhat like the rest of it, or?
Yeah, the imagery's in the report. It's a fairly simple one. I would say similar to what we've got across the street over here is probably similar.
Yeah, looks good.
Takes us to 6.2, temporary use permit on 251 Vermilion.
Yeah. We received a letter application from the hospital auxiliary thrift store for use of a shipping container to store their excess donations until they can be shipped away. They get paid by pound, I believe, for donations that they can't use or are damaged or whatnot. Currently, they have a location off-site, and that contract is coming up, and they've been approached by Diabetes Canada to manage a shipping container on their location. The need for temporary permit comes because it is not a permitted use in C2 zoning to have a shipping container. So they've requested a permit, a 3-year permit, to see if this new arrangement will work. It would be located off of the lane at the rear of their store at 251 Vermilion. And they, yeah, it's I guess the big steel box containers is what they use for, the Diabetes Canada uses for this. They think there's room to get in and out and pick it up and take it away, so hopefully that's the case. I think again, with the reason for applying for the temporary permit over a zoning amendment is to see if it works for them in a trial run here.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So staff has proposed a amendment to the travel expense policy, last written in 2014, which will amend the policy in 3 ways. Number 1, it will replace the mileage rate currently granted by the town, which is 52 cents a kilometer, with the maximum allotted from the CRA under their staff reimbursement policy, which allows 61 cents for the first 5,000 kilometers and 55 cents for anything over and above that. Anything over and above that 61 cent mark would be considered a taxable benefit for the entire mileage granted. So most businesses and municipalities cap it at the CRA maximum. So that's a policy. It wouldn't have to be adjusted every year. It would adjust maximum. We haven't shifted that policy in the last 8 years, and with gas approaching $2 a liter, it seemed like a prudent measure. The second point that has been shifted in the travel expense policy is to require any staff to receive business use coverage through ICBC. It's a potential liability risk if people drive around and they say their vehicle is only being used for personal use or business use more than less than 6 days. They have to prove it to ICBC, and there could be some denial of claim, which could leave the municipality at risk. So as the policy reads, if you wish to drive your vehicle for business use, you'd be required to get business use through ICBC and submit a form for the difference, and the town would reimburse the difference between personal use and business use, so that the said employee would not be out of pocket for using their vehicle for town purposes. The third change in the travel expense policy is to segregate meals from the rest of the expenses that are listed in the travel expense policy. Technically, under the previous travel expense policy, $70 was granted for meals, parking, incidental phone calls, and I believe office expenses. And anyone who stayed in downtown Vancouver or Richmond or any of the other places where we sometimes have to travel to, parking can easily be $30 to $40, and that leaves about $30 to $40 for meals, which is usually insufficient for travel these days. So the $70 would be for meals per day, and parking and incidentals would be paid at cost with receipt. So it's just a couple of minor administrative changes, and I submit that to council for their perusal.
For that travel, that'd be like, for example, going to get the mail, like, although you can walk, but if that's just for staff, it's not
That would
for-
be the travel policy for the town, so that would be reimbursement for staff, mayor, and council.
So is that like travel to
That could be travel to anywhere.
events, like a
Yeah,
a
Silga,
convention and stuff?
UBCM,
So everybody would be required to get that?
that's right. But only if you drive your personal vehicle to a business event.
Yeah, which we do.
So moved. Just curious, does this have something to do with $2 price of gas?
Yeah, we've had a couple of staff members come to both Lyle and I regarding the increase in gas prices and use of personal vehicles. So we just want to make sure we keep up with the inflationary pressures that we have. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. This resolution is required to shift the funds from various reserves into revenue accounts for the fiscal year 2021. All these have been allocated per different motions and the financial plan through the year. Some of them have policy behind them. They're all detailed in the report. I won't go over them in huge gory detail. I think they're fairly self-explanatory. But a resolution is required to shift reserve funds from their various reserves into their proper accounts. So I ask council to approve this resolution.
Well, I was going to say, thank you for doing that. I like that detail. It's broken down with the numbers. It's easy to follow. I appreciate that for references. Yes, I was going to make the motion.
So seconded, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 6.5, purchase and replacement Christmas decorations. Gary.
So these are decorations that we lost in the flood of 2021. This is basically a replacement insurance claim for what was washed down the river from the store at the works yard.
We're waiting, Randy.
Any questions? Has there ever been a record of a flood as high as where we're gonna build a new town hall?
The director has prepared the report, but there's nothing attached to the report. There's no listing of what we're replacing or a quote from the business. So I was just wondering where that was.
There was a quote on there, but it didn't get
Unless
attached.
my package is missing it.
So it's replacing 60 wreaths. I can tell you what it's replacing. 60 wreaths, 25 boxes of lights, and 6 trees that go on poles.
And 6 trees?
Attached to poles. I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
What'd you call me?
I just wanna make sure. This is all covered by insurance?
Yeah, so under our purchasing policy, anything over $20,000 for a contract has to go in front of council. Even in an emergency situation, anything over $50,000 has to go in front of council. So this is why the resolution is in place. The source of funds is fully 100% through our building insurance because it was located in the public works yard at the time.
Comment. I just would like to see the quote attached to reports, please.
Any other comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Council reports, Councilor Willis.
I think we had a special meeting here, but,
I can't remember the
I don't
date.
know the date or the, and that's all I have to report.
I was trying to remember the date of it too, but yes, that was the last meeting we were at. Nothing further.
Okay, went to the Copper Mountain Mine Corporation evening dinner meeting on March the 8th. Attended a museum meeting on the 9th, a PXA directors meeting on the 10th with Councillor Gould. Then on the 16th, attended the special meeting of council, Healthcare Steering Committee meeting, which was a Zoom meeting, and then a Canadian Mental Health Association meeting, also a Zoom meeting, and that's it for me.
I attended some of those that he mentioned. Just a point I wanted to make is that down the streets down below the Bridge Street and that, they're so full of mud and everything, but I was pleased to hear today that our street sweeper is up and running, and I think it may take perhaps water and the street sweeper to clear the mess up there, but at least I was pleased to hear that we're getting going on it.
Yeah, the guys have done a really good job so far in getting it cleaned up. The growth of residents. Yeah, they're getting on it, looks good. They worked all weekend, so.
Perfect.
Gonna be meeting with Town of Mine on Tuesday night, or Wednesday night, kind of the Silver Board meeting. Then we had the museum meeting that afternoon. I don't know if I knew it.
Yeah, you were there.
It seems like we just had a meeting.
I know, no, you were there.
And then we had, we met with, who did we meet with? Everything's blurring together right now. We had a couple online meetings over recovery and, same old, there's not a lot happening there. I did get a phone call from Bill Blair, Public Safety Minister for Government of Canada, who assured me that there will be DFA funding coming forward, but it hasn't been approved by the Treasury Board as of yet, so that's still waiting to happen. I explained to him the urgency of the funding and municipalities like ourselves and Merritt and other small towns who are paying for some of this stuff out of pocket and not being reimbursed, and that we can only go on so long before we're gonna have to start borrowing money, and that only can go on for so long before we're stuck paying the bill and they're not doing anything for us. So I stressed that very strongly, and he agreed. I did bring up the Trans-Canada Trail with him and the importance of that corridor as a tourism link. It's not his jurisdiction, but he said that is Heritage Canada because it was, I guess, considered part of their system. So he did make a note of it. So hopefully we'll hear something from the federal government on the importance of getting that link between us and Coyne, if nothing else, kind of look after. There's some contractors in the area working on debris removal in the river. That's what all these helicopters you guys have seen flying over. They're mapping man-made debris, not natural debris. So they're working on trying to get all the garbage out of the river. There's 3 different contractors working on that, so we'll see how much they actually get done. Yes, I don't know what I Red Cross has kind of changed their position again. They're going to help people stay in commercial accommodations for the time being.
Oh, good.
But still, it's all temporary.
Month to month.
Yeah.
Week to week.
We still haven't got any word on any assistance from the province on the temporary housing. We're still trying to figure that out, and they say they're waiting for the Treasury Board. We don't know what's going on. Yeah, it's every day is still
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, did the Red Cross say how far they're extending it, or just, it's not the end, it's not ending March 31st anymore?
It's not the same way it was. It's
Okay.
now like a very, but they're not going, they're gonna work with people to try to keep them in there.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for public representatives to make that, and maybe come out today. And we're working on a public meeting with the Red Cross, so they can explain stuff. And I think that's scheduled for sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Maureen's working on that. We're just trying to get their head people to come here and not just somebody who can't give us answers. Because I don't want a public meeting without somebody who can provide actual answers to the questions we're asked and not just regurgitate the party line, because that's no use to anybody. So that's where we're kind of hung up right now, is trying to get the right people at that meeting so that people can ask those tough questions and actually get truthful answers, not just
Okay.
what they were given to on the scripts.
Thank you.
I forgot one point. I was in conversations with Warehouser concerning something else, and the topic of, a similar topic that came up at the mine supper was that housing shortage. Both firms are ready and willing to hire people, but they are not going to hire them until housing comes up. So, you know, steps like this carriage house business and everything else, and the airport hopeful development and all that, you know, just adds to the list of what we're trying to do. We realize that the need is out there, besides all the people that are stranded and everything else, and we're doing everything we can. But as you have said a number of times, we are not, municipalities do not build houses, but we are trying to do everything we can to you know, make that happen.
Definitely are doing that. There's houses being built everywhere around us right now, so it's good. One last thing, under 13 Princeton Council won their division
Yeah.
championship, so congratulations to them. They won 3 banners this year, so it's pretty awesome. Okay, we'll move on to section 9, correspondence action or question. So the first one is 9.1, Princeton Mixed Slogan. And there's a recommendation that council approve the request from the Princeton Mixed Slogan to display, install, remove, and storage of sponsorship signs, and that due to the unavailability of nonprofit community group insurance program, the town of Princeton will not be able to provide general liability insurance to user groups this year. Any questions?
Make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, motion by Councillor Lewis, seconder. Councillor Elliott. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. That is a
Just gonna
hard
make
one,
her-
the group insurance. I just will say that. In the past, we've always been able to buy insurance. That company seems to be no longer answering their phone, so we believe that COVID out of the game. So last year, Cody worked 3 years trying to find a replacement for that program, and he worked on it till, I think, the day that he left us, and there's nobody willing to offer the same type of insurance.
Have we reached out to other communities to see what
Yeah,
they're
the
doing?
Dean is continuing to research this.
Okay.
So we'll try and find something, but at this point, we don't have anything.
Yeah, so Laurel and those guys are gonna have to go through their solicitations.
So last fall, there was an option for insurance, not that blanket one that was done based on event, time, how many people or dollars or anything like that, which was reasonable, like $15. Then an event that I had to do, it was like $135. That one's not even available?
No,
Where you go online?
I think people can still do that through their own associations and
Okay.
whatever, but it is quite a bit more expensive as you.
Yeah, for sure, but it was still insurance.
Yeah, the one we used to.
Still cheaper than,
Yeah,
The one we used
like,
to be able to offer was
very reasonable.
anybody could buy into it, through their events, and now
Yeah,
that company was just non-existent.
okay. But at least that other option is, because I had researched it and it was still cheaper than going through
Yeah.
public, like our private insurer,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
okay.
But we are continuing with scales, and Canadian are still looking for
Good.
an option, because we need something in place for the future as well. 9.2 is Parkinson's Awareness Month, 2022. Recommendation that council appoint in April 2022 as
I'll second that. Sorry, yeah, no, that's good. So it's the next one then.
All in favor? Carried, thank you. 9.3 is light up green for line awareness. Recommendation the council approve the request from DC Line to light up Town Hall green from May 3rd, 2020 for Lyme Disease Awareness Month and provide information about Lyme disease on the town's website.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, no, that Lyme awareness, like, it's actually something that's happens in our area. And a lot of people think it's a back east thing, but it's definitely something that happens, so I'm in support of that.
It comes from deer.
Not necessarily.
It can come from deer.
Wood ticks, isn't it?
It's from wood ticks. Yeah. They carry it, but so do cats and dogs carry wood ticks too. So it's not just deer.
So do deer, though.
Yeah, I wish that could be a reason to help. And deer, yeah. And cats and dogs and birds
Mice.
and mice. Yeah. Anyways.
Any further comment? All in favor? Carried, thank you. 10, bylaws and resolutions. 10.1, development costs charges by 10/15/2022. Carrie's not there, unfortunately. CAO,
I think I left for these before. Do I need to look? So this is an initiative of Council's strategic planning. Council has kind of reviewed this and given it first and second reading, just as a little history there. We have just now completed the public consultation process. We received one comment, which was very favorable of the DCC bylaw. Once third reading has been approved by council, like tonight, it will go before the Inspector of Municipalities for review and approval. Just a reminder, the proceeds of the DCCs goes right back into the development, or offset the development services costs. So development pays for development. It's about time, yeah. 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 And that's what the province has said too, it's about time, so.
So moved.
Seconder? Comments? All in favor? Carried, thank you. 10.2, 2021 financial plan bylaw number, amendment number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So for council's consideration, staff have proposed a new bylaw for amending the financial plan for 2021 through 2025. This bylaw is necessary due to the flooding event of the Tulameen River on November 14th. The town had to incur approximately $1.4 million of extra spending outside of the financial plan. This is allowed under the community charter during an emergency. Section 173, Part 3 states that a municipality may make an expenditure for an emergency that is not contemplated for that year in its financial plan, so long as the expenditure is not expressly prohibited under this or another act. The extra expenses went toward road cleanup, went toward debris cleanup, went toward overtime staffing at the EOC, went toward overtime staffing at the fire department. It went toward decking rebuild and repair. It went toward directional drilling to restore water service to the north side of the Tulameen River. It helped with the repairs to the Fenchurch lift station. So there was quite a bit that was done with that funding. So the primary change to the financial plan is to add that as an expense, and as the revenue source to offset that expense is extra revenue provided by Emergency Management BC through their through the Emergency Program Act, which we are still waiting for, but the grant applications are in place. So I ask that council consider this for the first 3 readings. We went right to 3 readings because There's not a lot of amendments to these. It does correct a couple of budgetary line items to bring certainty to the financial plan. And it still needs to go to a public consultation process, which will be for another period of 2 weeks. Staff have already prepared the budget presentation video, which also includes the amendment to the 2021 financial plan in addition to the 2022 financial plan, so we can do both at the same time. We will pass this 2021 financial plan before we repeal it to institute the 2022 financial plan during the next regular or special meeting of council. So I submit this to council for their readings. Thank you.
Sorry, James, what did you say the amount was? 1.4, almost 1.4?
I believe it was 1.4.
Okay, and then in here it said 1.2.
Okay,
So
it could be one. I
increased?
think you're right. I think I was
Okay.
mistaken. So 1.2. I think 1.5 includes the amount for January.
So ideally, it'll be 100% offset. So we need to put the expenditure out, but we will get the money back.
Correct. So
And
it's a money in, money out situation. It's a revenue neutral thing.
but we have to be prepared in case that money doesn't come.
Yes, there are several. Well, it's not as if the money, the grants are in place,
Okay.
but this is all response costs, so they are 100% covered by the provincial government.
Okay, there's not a risk that we're, okay, so it's not like 80% and 20%.
Yeah, this is not DFAs.
Okay, okay, thank you.
DFA, we have to fork out 20%, whereas the response stuff, they have to be 100%.
So there's a zero tax
There
increase
should be zero.
cost.
It should be revenue neutral.
Thank you.
There shouldn't be any extra costs in excess of revenues.
Thank you.
So moved.
A second.
Any further questions, comments? All in favor? Carried, thank you. 10.3, 2022-2026 financial plan bylaw, James.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So staff has proposed the 2022-2026 financial plan bylaw for third reading. As amendment, there were a couple of minor adjustments made to the financial plan. Mostly there were 2 capital projects that were left off the initial draft. One was for the carry forward for the OCP review. The other was for downtown revitalization, which was already approved for a grant in this past year. We received 1 email submission, which is attached to council for their consideration. It was referred to Public Works. It was specifically to get a plan for what Public Works' spring sidewalk repair schedule would be. Otherwise than that, there were no submissions. A video was placed onto our website detailing the 2022 financial plan, and 2 articles were placed in the newspaper inviting submissions toward that financial plan. So I submit the financial plan bylaw for third reading for council's consideration. Thank you.
Questions or comments?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Elliott, second. Councilor Coyne. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. 10.4, official community plan, OCP amendment, bylaw number 1021-2022, zoning amendment, bylaw number 1022-2022, carriage houses and secondary schools. This is Mark or Lyle?
Yes, this is a third reading for the changes to the OCP and zoning bylaws to allow carriage houses and secondary suites in the majority of residential zones. Through public consultation now, no great feedback, nothing to really report anything new there. Have had lots of communication with the public about, will we be in the right zone and that, and I think the answer is, for for the majority of single-family residential, as, you know, as long as things conform, we can probably work with you, but certainly nothing real new since first and second.
Any questions?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Second, any questions on the motion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Brings us down to 13, adjournment.
Agenda adjournment. Oh, Councilor McLean has something to say.
Could I get, I know Public Works isn't here today, but could I get an update on where we are with the boil water situation in terms?
Unfortunately, I don't have any great news. Nothing has really changed. From my understanding, we still are getting a negative hit in one of our wells. And of course, after treatment, we can look after it through treatment, but as long as there is a marker that shows up in our well, Interior Health is not comfortable releasing the boil water. We do want to flush our entire system out, which is just a good exercise to do. But I just want council to be aware that there still is a marker that is showing up in our well itself, which tells us and tells Interior Health that it looks like there is a cross connection now, which is new. Since the flooding, I would say that the river and our aquifer have kind of joined up together, and so we are getting some infiltration directly from the river into our well. That's what we're suspicious of.
So I'll speak further on that. So we're waiting the results of the study right now.
Yeah.
And once we hear about that study, we'll know exactly where we stand. But all indications to this point are exactly as the CEO said, that it appears that there's infiltration into our aquifer from the river. So the river's moved underground, the river's moved as well, not just above ground. So if that's the case, that's why we've applied for that grant. And we've also applied for PFA funding to move the wells and replace them at that $4.5 mark. So we would have to move them away from the river, drill new wells, and then put in the longer contact time with the chlorination plus a UV treatment system on top of that. So that's what we're looking at, and that's what all indications at this point are pointing towards.
Yeah. I mean, we're preparing for the worst-case scenario, but, I mean, we're still hopeful that, I mean, this marker will go away and we can treat it and be good, but worst-case scenario, we have to move the wells. We're preparing for that.
So an aquifer is spread far below the surface and sideways.
Yeah.
So I thought one of our areas that we were looking at was higher up in Memorial Park sort of thing?
That's correct, yeah.
Are we in danger then of just,
Well, you know, our expertise is telling us that we just need to be further away from the river to allow, like it'll actually filter itself the further away you get from the river. And so,
That's what the rest of that system is too. So it's not just moving it, which will hopefully add extra gravel or groundwater filtration. But that extra system where we add that extra contact time,
yeah,
that and then the UV system on top of it adds extra layers of protection on top. And that's how Merritt was able to get their water system up and running as fast as they were, even though they were completely saturated, is they had all that already in place, whereas we didn't have that in place. So I think Merritt's got a relatively newer system
Yeah.
compared to ours. So if we have all that in place, then even though we get that negative contact prior to chlorination, the extra contact time after it goes into the system, and then the UV treatment on top of it will theoretically neutralize any possibility of that making it through the system and into the public sanitation water.
so would there be any point in terms of drilling a test well in the area that we're thinking of in order to, and
Yeah.
testing the water to see if if we were getting markers on
Yeah,
that?
so as the mayor pointed out, we're just waiting for this, it's called GARP. I'm not sure what it stands for exactly, but
Water
yeah, yeah. Well,
Assessment.
yeah, that's right. So we're just waiting for this study to be completed, which is nearing completion. And then that'll help us to identify, you know, what we need to do going forward. And definitely before we drill anything substantial, we'll be doing some testing, test wells. Yeah.
Have we not flushed anyone?
We cleaned it, so we flushed, we disinfected the system
Yeah.
first,
Mhm.
but to flush the system, we have to pretty much empty the reservoir. So we have to open all of our fire hydrants, drain everything out, give it a good flushing, and then fill it back up. We don't have any, because our reservoir was empty prior, we feel pretty confident, but it's just part of the whole process of going through it. We weren't able to do that earlier because it's still freezing at night, and we don't want the town to turn into a giant scraping ring.
Use
So-
that water to clean the streets.
Yeah.
And we are, doing that now, so.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's in the plan, but it doesn't, as long as we get that positive hit prior to, or negative hit, I guess, prior to chlorination, Interior Health has made it very clear that we will not be getting this lifted at any time.
So would we, well, I suppose we have to wait for that report or whatever, but my question was gonna be, if the markers stopped and we went back to allowing water, would we still not think about going into the process that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at this point, Interior Health, even if they do have mercy on us and they allow us to lift the boil water advisory, they're going to expect within a certain amount of time that we change our
Perfect,
system or
perfect.
this in this position.
Yeah.
The inspector made that fairly clear to our staff that, this should be done, and there's no way you're gonna get around it.
Okay, thank you.
But we're just waiting on this one study.
Yeah.
And we know exactly where we're at.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.